Pokemon HeartGold and Soul Silver are some really long Pokemon games, and knowing this, I decided to make them even longer by attempting to beat Pokemon HeartGold using only shiny Pokemon. Not only is this game long, but it's actually my first time ever playing HeartGold, so this is sure to be really difficult. Also, since you guys love to see me suffer, I'm going to be adding on the hardcore Nuzlocke rule set that you see on screen now. With that being said, the chances of finding a shiny in this game are 1 in every 8,192 encounters, and those are the odds I was working with when looking for my shiny starter. Luckily for me, in Pokemon HeartGold and Soul Silver, there's this really nice feature that allows you to see if your starter is shiny before you even pick it. With this feature, my chances of finding a shiny go way up, as now every time I soft reset, any of the 3 starters can be shiny. This means that my new odds of finding a shiny are now 1 in every 2,730 encounters, and since I was getting roughly 6 encounters per minute, I was supposed to get my shiny in about 7.5 hours. Unfortunately enough for me, I ended up being way over odds, and it took me almost 15 hours to find a shiny, but eventually I found myself a shiny Cyndaquil. I got it! Yes! Let's go, man! Yes! Yes, it's a Cyndaquil too! Let's go! Holy, God, bro. Dude, Cyndaquil is the one I was looking for as well. I nicknamed Cyndaquil Apollo and find out he's got a really good nature, which is special attack up and special defense down. Now I begin my journey through Johto, and as I'm doing this, I really am struggling. Half the time I keep taking wrong turns, going down wrong paths. It was really bad. It took me like 15-20 minutes just to make it to the first town. In the town, I meet this old man who is definitely on something. Then I get a call from Professor Elm telling me there's been a disaster. As I'm going back to the lab, I meet this guy who's got a huge ego problem. He says to me that my Pokemon is too good for me and that I'm a wimp, so I show him the full might of my shiny Cyndaquil, beating him in a battle and stealing his trainer card. After absolutely mollywopping that kid, I move back to the lab where I find out he actually stole from there. I tell the cops his true and very realistic name, and I then get taught how to catch a Pokemon. Now originally, I didn't think you just beat the crap out of Pokemon to catch them, but I mean, it's what she does, so why not? With that valuable information acquired, I'm actually ready to use it and catch myself my next shiny. I decide to start my hunt in the dark cave where there's a 50-50 chance I get a Geodude or a Zubat. Honestly, I'm hoping for a Zubat just because I really do like Crobat, but it's not really that bad if I get Geodude because he can really help me out with the first and the third gym. Either way, after only a couple of hours, I ended up finding myself a shiny Zubat, which really looks good. I give him the nickname Dionysus and find out his nature is defense down and speed up, which really isn't useful for Zubat at all. It's fine though, as with Zubat caught, I'm ready to go into Violet City. In the city, I go up Bellsprout Tower where this old man gives me Flash, which I will say is a little bit weird coming from an old man, but I digress as I'm ready to go challenge the first gym. Faulkner leads with Pidgey as I lead with Apollo. I start out by going for an Ember against Pidgey, doing about 2/3 as he hits me with a Sand attack, and because I don't really want to have my accuracy lowered going into Pidgeotto, I decide to switch out. I moved into Dionysus to go for a Supersonic to hopefully confuse Pidgey, and eventually I get the confusion off and switch back into Cyndaquil. Unfortunately, Pidgey's able to hit me through the confusion, but not with a Sand attack, so I just go for another Ember in the following turn, finishing off Pidgey and leading me into Pidgeotto. I outspeed and go for an Ember, doing about 1/3 as Pidgeotto hits me with a Tackle, bringing me down to 23 HP. I then go for another Ember, doing another 1/3 and getting a lucky burn on Pidgeotto as he just starts to spam Roost. Once he stops going for Roost, he hits me with a Gust, bringing me down to 14 HP as he's down to half. If this battle goes on for any longer, I might lose, so I go for an Ember with the intent to finish off Pidgeotto, and thankfully it gets a critical hit, finishing off the Big Bird, winning myself my first badge. With that battle finished up, my Cyndaquil evolves into Quilava, and I start to head towards the next town. To get to the next town, it takes a minute, and by a minute, I mean a whole entire hour. I don't really know why I was struggling getting around this game so much, but I was really having a difficult time. After a while, I find myself in Azalea Town where all the Slowpoke are missing for some reason. I start to do a little bit of detective work and I find out that all the Slowpoke have their tails chopped off in the middle of this random well, which is just why? Why would Team Rocket do this? I saved the Slowpokes by finishing off Team Rocket, and now all that's left to do in the town is fight Bugsy. Bugsy leads the battle with Scyther as I lead with Apollo. Scyther starts out by going for a Focus Energy as I go for an Ember, doing almost half. On the next turn, Scyther lowers my defense with a Leer as I go for an Ember, bringing her down to about 1/4 remaining as she heals up a little bit with a Citrus Berry. At this point, Scyther's onto her last legs as she goes for a quick attack, getting a critical hit, bringing me down to 3 HP. This is the only reason I actually killed Scyther though, as it activates my ability Blaze, so I go for an Ember and it ends up finishing her off. That was really horrifying to say the least, and when Metapod comes out, I'm having absolutely none of it. I decided to switch out immediately into Zubat so I can finish off the battle with him. Just a handful of wing attacks later, Metapod and Kakuna both go down, and I earn myself my second badge. Goldenrod City is next, and to get there, I've got to go through this Farfetch'd, who's honestly just super annoying. After stepping on a couple of twigs, I get the Farfetch'd to turn around, and I take him back to his owner. With that, I get the HM for cut, so I can finally move on onto Route 13. On this route, I talk to Lyra, and you know me, I start to spit my game, and Lyra ends up giving me her number, which I'll take as an absolute win. Now, I'm finally under Goldenrod City, and once I get here, I'm actually kinda stuck. Just one look at Whitney's team shows me that it's almost impossible for me to beat her with the current team I have. With that being said, I start to look forward at some routes where I could potentially start my next shiny hunt. Directly in front of Goldenrod City, there's Route 35, and on this route, there's a 60% chance I catch myself a Nidoran. It doesn't really matter to me whether I catch a Nidoran female or a Nidoran male, so I'll absolutely take those odds, and this is where I start my shiny hunt. This shiny hunt wasn't that bad. I was a little bit over odds, thought I would get it a little bit sooner, but not really too upset about it considering it was a shiny Nidoran. Oh, I got it! Let's go! I got it! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, I thought I would get that way sooner. I give him the nickname Aries and find out his nature is neutral, which is, you know, not bad. I immediately evolve him into Nidorino, then I'm ready to challenge Whitney in her normal types. Whitney leads the battle with Clefairy as I lead with Aries. Right away, I start out by going for a focus energy as Clefairy hits me with a taunt. I then go for a double kick, hitting a critical hit with the second double kick, bring Clefairy all the way down into the red as she goes for a Mimic. Whitney now goes for a super potion as in the following 2 turns I hit 2 more double kicks as it finishes off Clefairy and leads me into the dreaded Miltank. Miltank outspeeds me and starts out by going for a stomp, bringing me down to 41 HP as I go for a Leer, lowering Miltank's defense. Unfortunately, on the next turn, Miltank hits me with an attract, but thankfully I break through on that turn and I'm able to go for a double kick, doing a really good amount of damage to Miltank, bringing her down below half. On the following turn, Miltank hits me with a stomp that ends up flinching me. At this point, Miltank hits me again with a stomp, bringing me down to 13 HP as I luckily break through the attract once more, hitting another double kick, and that finishes off Miltank, winning me my 3rd gym badge. With my 3rd gym badge acquired, I get my little squirt bottle to move this Swoodowodo, and after doing that, I'm able to make my way into the next city. In this city, I find myself in the Burning Tower where I've got to fight my rival again, but this guy's a loser as his name states, so I beat him again. With him finished off, I go meet these legendary dogs who just jump around a little bit. One sniffs me, but really nothing important here, as then I evolve my Zubat into Golbat and Golbat into Crobat. Having a fully evolved team member at this point in the game is really nice, especially when you're going to go challenge the 4th gym. Morty leads the battle with Ghastly as I lead with Dionysus. Ghastly gets swiftly KO'd by a single bite as next out comes Haunter. Haunter is absolutely decimated by a bite, and with that the ace Gengar comes in. Gengar starts out by hitting me with a sucker punch as I go for a bite, bringing him down to half as he heals a little bit with a citrus berry. Because I'm not really looking to bring him into healing range, I go for a wing attack rather than a bite, and it brings him down to about a 1/3 as he goes for a Shadow Ball, bringing me down to 28 HP. I outspeed Gengar once again, and I'm able to go for a bite, finishing him off as that leads into Haunter, who just gets one-shotted. With the 4th gym down, I'm able to fight Team Rocket so I can get the HM for Serve. Now that I have that, I go to the Lake of Rage where I find this red Gyarados causing some trouble. Taking a quick look at my team, I realize I don't have anything that can use Surf, so I can't even go on the water. I go all around the Johto region to find something that can use Surf, but no matter how hard I try, I can't find anything. Eventually, I find myself a route where Wooper can be found, and while I'm searching, I ended up finding a Raikou, which is horrifying to fight against. Luckily for me, Raikou decided to flee, so me and my team are safe, as now I catch myself a Wooper and go to get a shiny Gyarados. It takes me a while to get the big fish in the ball, but eventually I do, and nickname Gyarados Poseidon. Now that I've got Poseidon, I get to witness Lance absolutely destroy these Team Rocket members in this hideout, and it's literally crazy. He actively destroys them. He used Hyper Beam on this scientist and launched him like 15 feet into a wall. It was nuts. With him having done that, I've got to go fight 500,000 Team Rocket members. Yay! It takes me way longer than I'm willing to admit to make it through all of them, but eventually I do, and my next stop is Cinewood City. Cinewood is the start of like 3 gyms back to back, so just bear with me here. My first fight with the gym leader in Sign Woodchuck is a really easy one. He leads the battle with Primeape as I lead with Dionysus. I start out by going for a wing attack, instantaneously bringing Primeape into the red as he hits me with a Leer. Then we kinda get stuck in a little loop with Hyper Potions, but eventually Primeape goes down as next out comes Poliwrath. Poliwrath is a little bit more difficult to defeat as I start out by going for a wing attack, not even doing half, as he hits me with a Hypnosis, making me fall asleep. With me being asleep, I decide to switch out into Poseidon, who gets hit by a Surf on the switch in, which does almost no damage, and on the following turn, I go for a Dragon Rage, bringing Poliwrath down into the red as he heals up a little bit with a Citrus Berry. One more Dragon Rage is able to OHKO Poliwrath, as that's my 5th badge. After that gym, I'm pretty much immediately ready to challenge the next. I gotta do a couple of things first though, one of which is evolve my Nidorino into a Nidoking. The next thing I gotta do is go on top of this lighthouse and get this Ampharos' medicine. Once the Ampharos is all healed up, I challenge Jasmine. She leads the battle with Magnemite as I lead with Apollo. Magnemite's not really a good Pokemon, so a single Lava Plume is able to take him out, and that leads into Steelix. Against Steelix, I start out by going for a Lava Plume, bringing her all the way down to 1 HP and getting a burn. She ends up retaliating with a Rock Throw that doesn't do too much damage, as I'm able to finish her off in the next turn with another Lava Plume. With Steelix down, another Magnemite gets sent in, and you already know how this goes. A single Lava Plume is able to do the trick, and that wins me badge number 6. I'm now on to Gym 7 back in Mahogany Town, and since there's nothing really standing between me and that gym, I just go fight it. Me being the dummy I am, I didn't realize that this gym's level cap was actually lower than the previous one. This means I can't actually use half of the Pokemon on my team because they just are over leveled. This is really unfortunate for me because I'm not able to use my best team member in this fight. This is really bad for me, as when Price brings out Seal, I have to lead with Aries. I outspeed Seal and start out by going for a double kick, doing almost half as Seal hits me with an Icy Wind, only doing 20. On the following turn, another double kick takes out Seal, as next out comes Dugong. For this, I switch into Poseidon, who gets hit by an Aurora Beam on the switch in, and on the following turn, I go for a Dragon Rage, doing 40 as I get hit by another Aurora Beam. This cycle of going for Dragon Rage and getting hit by an Aurora Beam keeps itself going until eventually Dugong goes down, and I'm left with 27 HP. With that, Price is onto his final Pokemon Palafine, and for this, I immediately switch into Aries, who avoids a Blizzard on the switch in. On the following turn, I outspeed and go for a double kick, getting a critical hit with the second kick, bringing Palafine below half as he heals up a little bit with a Citrus Berry. He then misses a second Blizzard in a row as I then hit another double kick, finishing off Palafine and winning myself my 7th gym badge. At this point in the game, it's a whole bunch of Team Rocket. I've got to go through tons and tons of Team Rocket members just to make it to the next area. In the Team Rocket hideout, I play a little bit of dress up, then I sneak into their base. While I was absolutely decimating Team Rocket members, my Quilava evolved into Typhlosion, then I was on to fight Executive Archer. Archer's team is made up of complete pushovers, so after I finish off his team, I'm done with Team Rocket. Now that Team Rocket's down, I've got to think about what I'm gonna do for the next gym, and honestly, I don't know. My current team doesn't seem to be built to deal with this gym, so you know what that means. Time to waste literal hours of my life looking for a Pokemon that's only difference is the fact that it's a different color. Or in other words, just a shiny hunt. I decided to begin my hunt on Route 43 where there's a Pidgeotto, Mareep, Falafi, and Girafarig, which honestly, all 4 I'm okay with. This shiny hunt took me almost 3.5 weeks, which is really so far over odds, it's insane. The shiny I ended up finding was Falafi, and if that whole experience isn't worth a sub, I don't know what is, because only 2.5% of my viewers are actually subscribed, so if you could please subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. With that being said, I named Falafi Hermes, then check out the nature, which is special attack up and special defense down, which is honestly pretty solid. I then a little bit later evolve Hermes into Ampharos, and just look at that shiny. It looks really nice. With all of that preparation done, I'm finally ready to challenge Claire and her dragon types for the final gym badge of this run. She leads the battle with Gyarados as I lead with Hermes. Right away, Gyarados outspeeds and hits me with a Dragon Rage, doing 40 damage as I go for a Discharge, finishing off Gyarados with a one-shot. Next, Claire sends in Dragonair, so I switch out into Aries, who gets hit by a Dragon Pulse on the switch in. When I'm able to attack with Aries, I go for a Strength, only doing about a third as Dragonair hits me with an Aqua Tail, bringing me down to 33 HP. This causes me to switch again, this time into Dionysus, who tanks an Aqua Tail on the switch in, and on the following turn I go for a Fly that finishes off Dragonair. With one Dragonair down, another one gets sent in, so I start off by going for a Fly, and it ends up doing about 2/3 as when I come down I get paralyzed. On that first turn of paralysis, Dragonair hits me with a Dragon Pulse that brings me down to 61 HP as I try to go for a Fly, but I'm fully paralyzed. At this point, I just start to spam Roost until I get to a point where I feel confident confident enough going for a fly. Eventually, I get to a point where I feel confident and I go for a fly, but unfortunately I miss, so I've got to do that whole cycle over again until I can actually hit fly. Takes me a minute, but Dragonair does go down, as that leads me into Claire's final Pokemon, Kingdra. Kingdra starts out by going for a smoke screen that lowers my accuracy as I go for a fly, and when I come down, I do about a third. Kingdra then hits me with a Hydro Pump that does over half as I go for a Poison Fang doing minimal damage, but activating Kingdra's Citrus Berry. I'm now absolutely ready to switch out, so I move into Gyarados, who tanks a Hydro Pump on the switch in, and on the following turn, I tank a Dragon Pulse. All this damage brings me down to 66 as I go for a Bite, bringing Kingdra down to half. It's at this point where Kingdra makes a really stupid move and for some reason decides to go for a Smoke Screen rather than going for a damaging move, allowing me to get off a free Bite. With that Bite, it looks like a Dragon Rage can kill Kingdra here, so that's what I go for, and it ends up hitting, finishing off Kingdra, and winning myself my final gym badge of this run. With not really much left to do in Johto, I head back to the professor's lab where I get my Master Ball. After getting that, I go to the top of the bell tower where I can catch my final Pokemon of this run, Ho-Oh. It took me about 9 hours to find Ho-Oh.
Oh, that's it! That's it! That's it! Yes! Yes, shiny Ho! Let's go!
And after catching him, I nickname him Zeus. Now, all that's left to do is go to Victory Road, so that's what I do, and in Victory Road, I have my final rival battle. This battle with Loser is honestly one of the easier ones in the game, especially considering my team is a way higher level than his. With that rival battle finished, I go to bid Loser adieu and fight Will in my first Elite Four battle. Will leads the battle with Xatu as I lead with Dionysus. Somehow, I forgot to switch my team around before moving into this fight, so I'm actually not really supposed to be leading with Dionysus, and that means I switch out immediately into Hermes. Hermes gets hit by a Psychic on the switch in, and on the following turn, Xatu goes for a U-turn to switch out. Xatu switches into Jinx, and on the switch in, Jinx gets hit by a Discharge, and it does a really good amount of damage and also paralyzes. This means that on the following turn, I'm able to go for another Discharge, finishing off Jinx. With Jinx down, Xatu gets sent in, and does a pretty good amount of damage with his Psychic as I go for a Discharge, and it ends up one-shotting. Now Executor gets sent in, and for this, I was a little bit worried because I wasn't sure if I was going to be faster, but I decided to go for a Signal Beam anyways, and thankfully I am, as it one-shots Executor. Slowbro's now out, and a single Discharge does the trick as Will's onto his final Pokemon, Xatu. Hermes can't stay in anymore, so I decide to switch out into Apollo. Apollo gets hit by a Psychic on the switch in, and on the following turn, I'm able to go for a Flamethrower, finishing off Xatu with a critical hit, winning myself my first Elite Four battle. My next battle is against Koga and his Poison types, and he leads the battle with Ariados as I lead with Zeus. I'm faster than Ariados by far, so I'm able to go for a single Fire Blast, finishing off Ariados with a one-shot. Next out is Forretress, who's a Bug and Steel type, and as you can imagine, my Fire type moves are really effective, so the Bug and Steel boy goes down to a single Sacred Fire, and that leads into Muck. Against Muck, I start out by going for an Extra Sensory, and it does about half as Muck sets up a Minimize. With Muck having set up Minimize, I actually miss an Extra Sensory as he hits me with a Gunk Shot, doing a really solid amount of damage. At this point, I'm able to hit Muck with an Extra Sensory, but sadly, it doesn't kill because he's been healing up with Black Sludge. He then hits me with a Toxic, and because of this, I decide to switch out into Aries. While Aries was going in, Koga decided to heal, as then he goes for a Gunk Shot in the next turn, not really doing too much damage as I'm able to one-shot with an Earthquake. The same thing that happened to Muck happens to Venomoth when he comes in, and now Koga's onto his final Pokemon, Crobat. Crobat's fast and starts off by setting up a double team as I go for a Strength, doing about a third. Crobat then hits me with a Wing Attack that brings me down to 93 HP as I go for an Iron Tail that somehow hits, and it does a lot of damage, bringing Crobat down to a fourth, and it lowers his defense. Crobat then heals a little bit of health with the Citrus Berry as I go to miss 2 consecutive strengths in a row, and that means I'm switching out. I move into Hermes, who eventually hits a Discharge, finishing off Crobat and winning myself my second Elite Four battle. I've now got to go challenge Bruno, and he leads the battle with Hitmontop as I lead with Dionysus. Right away, Hitmontop goes for a Quick Attack, getting a lucky critical hit, bringing me down to 99 HP as I go for a Fly. When I eventually come down, Hitmontop gets one-shotted, and next out comes Onix. Against Onix, I outspeed by a long shot, so I go for a U-turn to switch out into Poseidon. Poseidon doesn't get hit on the switch in as Onix elects to go for a Sandstorm, and this freely allows me to go for a Waterfall in the following turn, finishing off Onix as next out comes Hitmonchan. Hitmonchan has Thunder Punch, so I switch into Aries, who doesn't get hit by it. This allows me to go for an Earthquake in the following turn, allowing me to finish off Hitmonchan, and next out comes Hitmonlee, who experiences much of the same. Bruno's now already onto his final Pokemon, Machamp, and for Machamp, I stick in with Aries. With Aries, I decide to go for an Earthquake, as it does a pretty sizable amount of damage to Machamp as he heals with a Citrus Berry and hits me with a Cross Chop, getting a critical hit, but still only doing about half. Another Earthquake is able to do the trick as Machamp goes down, and that means I'm onto my final Elite Four battle. This final fight is against Karen, and she leads the battle with Umbreon as I lead with Hermes. Hermes is a great counter for Karen's team, as she has mostly dark and flying types that I can just kind of sweep through. Against Umbreon, I start up by going for a Signal Beam doing half as Umbreon sets up a double team. I get lucky in the next turn and thankfully hit a Signal Beam, finishing off Umbreon as next out comes Murkrow. Murkrow, being a flying type, is absolutely decimated by a discharge as this leads into Houndoom. Because I figure Signal Beam won't do that much damage to Houndoom, I decide to switch out into Aries, and when I do, Houndoom sets up a Nasty Plot. With Nasty Plot set up, Houndoom can really one-shot almost all of my team, but luckily enough, I'm actually faster than her, so I'm able to go for an Earthquake, and thankfully, it ends up one-shotting. With that, Vileplume gets sent in, so I switch into Dionysus, who gets hit by a Stun Spore on the switch in, and on the following turn, I go for a Fly to try and hit Vileplume and get a one-shot, but unluckily enough for me, when I come down, I bring Vileplume down to a Sliver. Unfortunately for Karen, Vileplume does barely any damage per attack, so I'm able to just go for another Fly, getting a higher damage roll and finishing on Vileplume. With that, Karen's onto her final Pokemon Gengar, and for Gengar, I decide to switch into Apollo. Gengar doesn't do any damage to me on the switch in, as I'm then able to go for a Shadow Claw, doing almost half, as Gengar then hits me with a Focus Blast, getting a critical hit and bringing me down to 12 HP. Thankfully, Gengar doesn't have any priority moves, so I'm able to outspeed and go for another Shadow Claw, finishing off Gengar and winning myself my final Elite Four battle. At this point, with the rest of the run behind us, I move on to fight Champion Lance in my final battle of this run. Here we go against Lance. He leads the battle with Gyarados. I'm going to lead with a Gyarados of my own. He hits me with that Intimidate right away, which is just a little bit annoying. I'm going to start setting up Dragon Dances right away. I'm going to hopefully try and get off 4 or 5. Gyarados can't really do too much damage to me. He can go for Ice Fang, which is neutral, but he, for some reason, likes to spam Dragon Pulse, which is just dumb. So that's 4. Honestly, I could go for another one, but I'm not really 100% confident I can kill Gyarados in one turn, even at +3 attack, so I'm just going to go for a Bite, see how much damage that does. About half. Yeah, okay, it was a good move. It was a good move. I didn't really want to get crit out by his Gyarados. Sends an Aerodactyl next. I should be faster than Aerodactyl. I should be faster, so I'm going to go for a Waterfall. Should one-shot as well. Hopefully. Dang. Oh, it lagged right there at the end. I thought he lived that. I was about to say. I mean, crazy. I have a Never Melt Ice on Gyarados, so I should be able to go for an Ice Fang, and it's just one-shot. This is all my strategy, by the way. If I miss an Ice Fang and get killed because of it, it's going to be pretty bad. I don't know why Lance has so many Dragonites. It really doesn't help him that much. Dragonite number 3 right here. It's the final Dragonite. Go for the Ice Fang. It hits. Dragonite goes down. Now he's on to Charizard, and Charizard goes down to a single Waterfall. I mean, that simple. One Waterfall. That was such an easy sweep. Ugh, my goodness, Poseidon, you're crazy. Damn, that feels good. That's the run. That's the run right there. It's 1 in the morning. I can't really give too much of a vivid reaction, but I am actually really happy about that. Unfortunately, that's the end of the journey. I wanted to do the Kanto, but it's just too long. I didn't want to delay the video anymore than I already have. I mean, regardless, look at that team. That team looks crazy. That team really does look great. I'm actually really happy about that. It was a really good run. It was a really good run. Can't really complain. Can't really complain. Happy I got it over with as well, considering so HeartGold. Here's my final thoughts about the games, considering I've never played it before. HeartGold is easy. It is not difficult. There is not a lot of like high level trainers. They're all pretty, weak. So, I don't know. They're all not that strong. Either way, I actually had a really good time with this game. It's probably my top 3 favorite Pokemon games in just one playthrough. I mean, honestly, catching only shiny Pokemon didn't really taint the playthrough that badly, especially since most of the time when I caught them, it was really hype. But yeah, I had a lot of fun in the run. I had a lot of fun. Let me know if you guys want to see another part to this, because I could totally do another, just part in Kanto. Catch a couple more shinies and whatnot, but I think that would be really fun. Overall, either way, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy, please consider subscribing. It really does help me out. And with that being said, that was my attempt at a Pokemon HeartGold Hardcore Nuzlocke using only shiny Pokemon.